a more concrete idea of what you're actually looking at. So before we start, I'm going to put everybody on mute and then unmute the two speakers. And if you could stay on mute until the end of the presentation, that'd be great. We will have time for questions at the end. Presentation should be about, I'd say 45 minutes, and we'll have about half an hour for any questions at the end. When it comes to the Q&A, I'll remind you again, but you can use your chat window, or you can click the raise hand button and we'll come to you in turn. So I will hand you over now to Ger O'Sullivan, who's going to start with the first part of the presentation.
Hello, everybody, and welcome. I suppose this is a new venture for me. It's only my third time doing a Zoom call, so bear with me while I get my way around it here. So basically we're breeding sport horses mainly, but we have Irish draft mares, and we started off with Irish draft mares. So what we did, I changed my job a few years ago, so I didn't have time to concentrate on showing or anything like that. So we changed our breed goal to breeding more for performance. And how did we do that? We still kept the same mares, but we changed what we were doing with the stallions and changed which stallions we were using. So breed goals can vary from breeder to breeder and are specific to each individual. So examples are breeding to retain rare bloodlines, breeding for enhanced showing. Keep going there, Catherine.
No, it's just stuck.
Breeding for performance, hunting, breeding for leisure, driving, breeding for ridden, showing, breeding for farm, forestry work. Whatever the breed goal, conformation, movement, soundness, and type are vital. So if you take breeding for performance, you're looking for a different horse and you're looking for different conformation than breeding for farm work or forestry work or for driving. And I suppose the main differences there are the functional conformation. The functional conformation for a riding horse is totally different to the functional conformation for a driving horse or a forestry work or anything like that. They just need to have with the ridden horse, you're looking for a horse, an animal with a sloping shoulder. And then from the point of view of working horses, you need them with a straighter shoulder and a steeper croup and all of that. So these are just a few examples of Irish draft horses. There are three different types really, but they're all Irish drafts. And I suppose the next slide then would be what we are breeding ourselves. Oh, sorry, these are just a few more of the showing. That's our mare in the bottom right. So here we have performance horses, but the interesting thing about these are either one of their parents are Irish draft. So the one on the right is Kildalton King sire and is the sire of that one, and the one on the left is the dam is Lydon Diamond. But this was purely our breed goal changed maybe 10 or 12 years ago, and we now have the breed goal to breed horses to meet the needs of the modern day competition and competitor, and that's what we're breeding for now. But we still have the Irish draft mares, and as you see, these are one of these parents are Irish draft. So here is a couple of other horses we bred, and the grandparents of these are Irish draft. And that's a 6-year-old, the guy in the big picture. He went to the European Championships last year in Leon down there. This is another one whose grandmother is Irish draft, and it just, you know, she's performing pretty well. She's just 3 now, so. So with the Irish draft, you can still breed a performance horse, but it's most likely not going to be of top level, but it is going to be of a very useful type. So the first thing you have to think about when you're going about breeding an Irish draft is you have to look for the breed objective and the breed goal. And the Irish draft on the Horse Sport Ireland website, the Irish draft breed objective is to breed Irish draft horses with conformation, movement, and temperament that conform with the breed standard, which will make quality, sound, and versatile horses. So that's step one when you're starting your breeding program, is look what the breed is actually looking for. And then you have to move on and see your own. The next one is just the sport horse, to produce performance horse that is sound, athletic, good pace, is suitable for temperament, capable of winning the highest international standard. So that's just the difference between the two. What's the next one, Catherine? So to set your breed goal, you really need to understand how the stud book works. And this is the most vital part of the whole thing. You really need to know how the classification system works and how the stud book itself works. So to simplify it, imagine you have a 4-drawer filing cabinet. And we'll start with drawer 4. Every Irish draft foal registered with the stud book is placed into drawer 4, and that is class 4. The only way an animal can leave drawer 4 is to attend an inspection. Regardless of your breed goal, each generation will most likely need to be tweaked in one way or another, be it movement, conformation, type, athleticism, temperament, whatever. They will all need, whether you're breeding for performance, whether you're breeding for showing, or whether you're breeding for working horses, they will all most likely need to be improved in one way or the other. And understanding firstly how the inspections work and the stud book works is the step one there. So by attending an inspection, you will receive a linear profile, and this profile is the blueprint of your animal. And at this stage, your animal is now either in drawer 1, class 1, drawer 2, class 2, or if it fails the vet check, it will be in drawer 3, class 3. And that's very important to understand. So drawer 1, class 1 is inspected. So what we know about these is they are of a certain type, they are sound of the vet, and drawer 2, class 2 are inspected, and they are of a certain type and they are sound of the vet also. So it's not the worst thing in the world to be in class 2, it's just that there's a slight difference between each class. And drawer 3 then is the one where they fail the vet, but they're generally not inspected. And I don't think that's a good idea, because breeding is all about getting information back to the breeders. And if we don't get the information back, people are still going to use the stallions that are passing on negative traits. And that's not very helpful really to the breeders. So drawer 4 is class 4, which we spoke about earlier. And we know a lot about drawers 1, 2, and 3 at this stage, but we know very little about drawer 4. And all we know really is the pedigree and the numbers registered. So as a breeder, as breeders need to get as much information as possible about the breed. I'm missing some of that, Catherine. How's that? Right. Oh yeah. A breeder needs to get as much information as possible about the breed, and to achieve this, all animals in drawer 4 need to attend inspections. This includes geldings, as they are 50% of the breed. This is where the stallion owners need to step up to the plate. And this really is like the stallion owners, the horse board members, all of this, they need to stand up and be counted at this stage. Like stallion owners need to encourage breeders to bring their fillies and geldings to the inspections. And the more information about each stallion, the better. And it's common sense really. So shows could play their part also. You know, it is our native breed, and the shows are really set up in the countryside to encourage the breeding locally and encourage the local competitors. So more prize money or for inspected animals or a premium of some sort will be very effective. And as I said there, a few of the Irish Horse Board members are stallion owners, but even the members of the board, a few of them are from the Irish draft field, and they need to lobby HSI also and the stud book to get the information back out to the breeder. So if you, the breeder, don't bring the animals to the inspection, then it's the breeders are at fault. And a rising tide will lift all boats, and that's what our native breed needs. So now is the time, as the breeder, sorry, I'm just moving this around. Now is the time to stand on your own 2 feet and make the decision to achieve your breed goal. And I must stress at this point, don't be led by social climbers on social media, and don't be breeding for likes on social media. You must paddle your own canoe and don't follow blind what you see on social media. Your mare and her foal is all you have control over. A good friend of mine always says, think of breeding as baking a cake. If you have the wrong ingredients, then your cake isn't edible. So it's up to you to do the research and understand the linear profile or blueprint. A stallion will only contribute 20 to 25% approximately of the intended foal. So keep this in mind when you're going breeding. So setting your breed goal is the first and most important thing to do. Understanding the stud book is what will guide you on your breed goal. And it doesn't matter what your breed goal is, but you need to know the important traits that will help you achieve it. And again, as we said earlier, if you're breeding for driving or for farm work or something to do with pulling, you're going to have a straighter shoulder than somebody who's breeding for a riding horse. And I know loads of people who are breeding for bringing timber out of the woods and forests and all of that. And that's what they're looking for, is the straight shoulder and that's what we call the functional conformation. So once your breed goal is set, then you need to decide how you're going to achieve it. And this leads to other thoughts. How long will it take to achieve it? And how far from the breed goal is your mare? And be realistic with your assessment. So this is something I did when I became an inspector, and people were asking me, you know, they'd be getting their linear profile back and they'd be looking at it, and it's like looking into a box of Smarties. You just don't know what you're looking at, really, you know. So I just did this for my own information and also for breeders. So where the green is are the important and the better parts of each trait, and this is bearing in mind the breed goal of the stud book. The red parts are very much a negative, and the shaded, the lighter green are sort of where you need to be improving on. And any of the red parts out on the right hand side are very much a negative as well. But as you can see there, when it comes to the length of the body, you need a little bit more length than a little bit too short, and the head to have it nice and not too fine and not too plain. The head neck connection is something that's very important if you're talking about riding horses. So you need to have it a little bit lighter rather than too heavy. And the length of the neck again is very important for riding horses. So you need it a little bit longer than too short. But if it's neither long nor short, it's okay. But the longer you'd have it, the better. So the position of the neck, the vertical or horizontal, that's really, once it's not too much either way, again, is something that you're quite happy with. And the height of the withers, again, you'd like to see them slightly higher than flat. So the position of the shoulder. So as I said, with the working horse, you're looking for a straighter shoulder, but with the Irish draft, you or with the breeding for a performance, you're looking for a slightly sloping shoulder. But it is a trait of the Irish draft to have a straight shoulder, and you know, just because you breed one mare, that like she may or she may not bring the sloping shoulder. But that's what your job is as a breeder, to try and improve on all of these things. It's not the inspector's fault if your mare has a straight shoulder. The barrel again is another important part of the draft, and to have it nice and deep. But again, you have a lighter, more quality draft that is in work, and you know they're doing their job as well. So the line of the back again, a bit, you need it more to strong than to weak, because the back end is where the engine is, and have that nicely muscled is what you want. So the shape of the croup, you don't want it too sloping and you don't want it too flat. So the length of the croup, the longer the croup is, you can see that that's going a little bit to the long side there. So that's what you're looking for with the breed goal that is set out for the Irish draft. But if you're breeding for, as we said, the workhorse or the driving or the pulling, whatever you're doing, you need that steeper rather than flatter, and shorter rather than long. So the forearm strong, the cannon bone length. This is something that this is where the breeder comes in then, because if your mare has a long cannon bone and you breed to a stallion with a long cannon bone, well, it's not the stallion's fault and it's not the mare's fault, it's your fault, you know. So you really need to know what you're doing when you are selecting your stallion. And substance of the legs, heavy or light, again, you want it more to heavier, but depending on the body, that's above it also. So the quality of the legs, lean or blurred, that's something that's you know, lean or blurred means if there's marks on the legs or something like that, but it's not detrimental. The vet would have seen all of the animals before they come to the inspection, so it's not a veterinary issue at this stage. So the quality of the legs be lean or blurred. So stance of the forelegs over the knee or back at the knee. So this is something that, I suppose, back at the knee is something that is very common in the draft. And again, it's up to the breeder to get it out, but it's not up to the inspectors, or it's not up to HSI or the Irish Horse Board or the Irish Draft Stud Book. It's up to the breeder to do this. The stance of the pastural and sloping or upright. You don't want them too upright and you don't want them too sloping. So the heels, again, high or low, either aren't detrimental, but the too low means that there's too much of there's less of a sponge in their hoof. So the stance of the hind legs, sickle or straight. Some people will tell you having them a little bit sickle is better than having them too straight, but it again, you don't want them too much either way. So the shape of the feet, wide or narrow. And as we're going along there, we're looking on the outside as well, little bits, the red boxes there, you know, tied in at the elbow, back at the knee, tied in at the knee, standing under. That's something it can be caused by too straight a shoulder, but it can also be caused by the wrong person handling the horse. And if you don't know what you're doing when you're handling the horse, and the horse's front legs are standing in underneath him, well, then that's the way they're going to be marked down. So you need to have your homework done as well before you come to the inspections. The same with the camped out and, you know, differences in the shape of the feet. And so the stance of the foreleg, toed in or toed out, that's pretty explanatory. Some people prefer them toed in rather than toed out, but you don't want them too far either way. Certainly, if they are toed in or toed out, you do need to work on it with your breeding program. So the hindquarters and gaskins, again, you need them more to strong than to weak. If you're only riding a horse, you need them to have a strong hind end, and that's where the power comes in the canter and the trot and the jump. So stance of the hind legs, cow-hocked or bow-hocked. If you stand behind them, you'll see them either the hocks are too close together and the feet are too wide apart, or the opposite way, the feet are too close together and the hocks are too far apart. So you need to have a nice straight line coming down behind. So the breed standard is self-explanatory there. So the movement then, so you want to be heading over to the green all the way for the movement if you can at all. Now, a lot of the time you see that the walk is quite short or it's in the middle. And a lot of the reason for that is if somebody isn't able to walk with the animal, they're holding them back. So that's automatically holding the walk back. You need to let them walk out and be loose and free. So walk correctness, toed in or toed out. And same there, you need them sort of in the middle rather than out to either side. And then back for the trot length of stride, you just need you need everything to be long and everything to be powerful and everything to be towards elastic. You know, if you look down the right hand side, you see short, toed out, short, incorrect, stiff, weak, pushing, short, weak, pushing. And if you look on the other side, long, toed in, long, correct, elastic, powerful, carrying, you know, long, powerful carrying. So they're the things you're looking for when you're in your inspection. And then the athleticism, the reflexes, the technique of the forelegs, the technique of the back legs, the technique of the haunches, scope. You want all that. You know, people ask why something is in class 2. Well, it's because it doesn't have some of these traits, and it may be a good mover, but it may not have good conformation, may not be the right type. You know, and that's where the breeder comes into play, that the breeder has to know what he's looking for. And what I've done with this is, a lot of people would come to me and they'd ask me, when you look at my linear profile there, and just where should I go or what should I do? And I wouldn't tell anyone how to breed their mare, but what I would tell them is what they have and how they need to improve it. So this is what I sort of give them, and it gives them a little bit of an insight into what they're looking for. And by going to the stallion then, and Liam will cover all of that in a minute, this is what your job as the breeder is. It's not the inspector's job, and it's not the stud book's job. It's the breeder's job to set his breed goal and to stick to the breed objective. This is another one that we bred there. So he's a gelding. So unfortunately, the stud book has not benefiting one thing from him. He doesn't look the worst horse in the world, and all that he is a class 4, and all we know is that he's registered as, and nothing else, which is totally wrong. You know, the breeders need to know, and the only way they will know is if the information is given out from headquarters. And I think we just need to lobby our representatives on Horse Sport Ireland and on the Irish Horse Board, and just try and work together to breed better Irish draft.
Thank you, Ger. So, Liam.
Okay, good evening and good morning and good night to everyone. Nice to see a few faces on this. Haven't seen a lot of you in a long time. So I'm going to talk about using linear profiles to match mares and stallions. But before I get into that, I just want to say that myself and Ger are HSI Irish Draft Stud Book inspectors, but we're speaking this evening as individuals who happen to be HSI inspectors. We're not speaking on behalf of HSI or on behalf of any other inspectors. We're just speaking as individuals. So we've been inspecting using linear profiling on Irish Draft mares and stallions since 2010. Both in Ireland and abroad. So what we're sharing this evening is based on our own experiences of scoring animals using linear profiling, and we're trying to give as much information to the breeders and people listening as possible on how to use the information that's there, that's published on stallions and the linear profiles you get back on your mares when you bring them to inspections, be they class 1s or class 2s, and how you can use that to your best advantage to breed better Irish drafts and good Irish drafts. The other thing you'd be often told is breed the best of the best and hope for the best. But that's fine if you're breeding thoroughbreds and you're looking at time ratings and distances and you're only going for the fastest animal from one point to another. And to a lesser extent in jumping, it's bloodlines have a lot to do with it. But if you're breeding a breed like the Irish Draft, or if you're trying to breed show horses and trying to breed good conformation, just going to chasing rosettes or breeding a champion to a champion won't always work. What you should be aiming to do at all times is find a stallion that complements your mare. So that means knowing both the good points in your mare and the weak points in your mare. And when you're breeding, you don't want to lose what you have to gain what you don't have. So that's the balancing act, and that's what I'm trying to go through tonight. I'm going to go through 4 different linear profiles of 4 stallions. The first 2 are class 1 horses and the second 2 are class 2 horses. They're different linear profiles and they have different strengths and weaknesses. I'll just go through them and discuss how each one of them would help breed a certain type of animal. So the first one on your screens there is a class 1 stallion that has some weaknesses in conformation, but is very strong on movement and athleticism. Now, it's one thing to also note here is the horse is positive for breed standard. So this horse, even though he's athletic and he jumped, he measured 24.5 centimeters of bone on the day of his inspection. So he was a type B Irish Draft horse, even though a little big. So when you're looking at a linear profile, down the middle, the letter E means a horse's, it can mean they're good or it can mean average. It depends on the trait you're looking at. But when you look at them, look at a linear profile like this, what you should be looking for is what's going outside the middle 3 boxes. So what's going outside E, F, and D, D, E, F. So E is the middle, and then you go either side of that. So what's sticking out here is the horse is obviously rectangular, so he's a scopy horse. He stands over a lot of ground. So 1 to 2 rectangle is pretty normal and good. You know, outside of that, you're looking at a horse that probably has a long back or is very short. Now, in the middle would just mean he has a short back. But if you're going out to F, it means you have very short back. So this horse is okay. He's scopy. He's a rectangular horse. So he has a short neck, an obviously short neck, and he has a heavy head-neck connection. And the other thing that sticks out most here is the horse is sickle-hocked. So he's obviously sickle-hocked, so his hind legs are behind him. Now, this means that he stands with his hind legs behind him, and even though he's sickle-hocked, the horse is vetted when he comes to us. Like, so some people associate sickle-hocked with curbs, but the horse is past the vet. He doesn't have a curb, so you know that when you go there. But if you're breeding, you have to watch. If you have a mare that's the same level of sickle-hocked, then you have a chance. You're increasing your chances of getting a weakness in the hock and a curb. So Even though a horse that's like that's sickle hocked at first glance, he's not going to be your show model type of a horse. As inspectors, we don't dismiss him there. We wait and see how the horse walks and how he trots and how he uses his hind legs. And when you move down further here on the linear profile sheet, you see where the strengths are on this horse. So the first thing on movement there, on walk for length to stride, he's down as 1 short. So should never pay a lot of heed to this, because the walk is down in hand, and how a horse walks has a lot to do with the handler that's with him. So he's down 1 short there, but the rest of his movement would indicate that he doesn't have a short stride. In fact, he has a very long stride and trot. So when the horse is left loose and left on his own devices, his movement improves as it goes along. So on movement, he's correct. He's not dishing, he's not plaiting, it does none of that. So he's not towed in, he's not towed out. He has a long length to stride. He's elastic, he's powerful in the trot. He's carrying. He has a long canter, he has a powerful canter, and he has carrying canter, which would indicate that this horse would have a bit of jump on him. And then you go down to the jump, and his quick reflexes, and his front legs are bent. He's neither rounded or hollow. So he's open behind. He has a lot of scope. He's supple, he's careful, and he has a great attitude. So he's all positive for it. That is a very good linear profile for jumping for an Irish draft horse. It's more like what you see for a sport horse. So he scored very high for athleticism, that particular horse, and movement. So from a breeding point of view, if you're looking at a linear profile like this, if you were a show in-hand showing person, you'd have to be extra careful using a horse like this, because he's shorter rein and he's got sickle hocks. But if you had a mare that has good conformation, that's not sickle hocked, or maybe just 1 sickle hocked, and she's an okay mover, so if she was down average for movement, if she's weak for movement, you'll improve the movement, but you're not going to get his athleticism out of nowhere. She want to be a reasonable mover to keep the athleticism that he has. So one things about this horse is he has sired a winner of the young section of the Performance Irish Draft class in Dublin. And even though he has those conformation weaknesses, he has sired 2 foals that have, one has been 3rd in the filly foal All Ireland, and one has been 3rd in the coal foal All Ireland in different years. So he is producing horses that can move and can jump a bit. And for the people who are want to breed for the performance classes and working hunter type Irish drafts, he's a good horse to consider. So we'll move on to the next horse. So this is sort of the opposite then. This is a true to type model with very good conformation. So this is a horse that scores very high in conformation and type, and is weaker on movement and athleticism. So for an in-hand show person, this is a good type of horse to produce a foal that's going to be true to type with good limbs and look the part. And even though there's some weaknesses in movement, if you want a foal that's going to walk a straight line and trot a straight line and bell and slow in an All-Ireland final, he could well win it using it at this type of a horse. So what's positive about him, he's 1 rectangle, so he's not long. He's just a good length of a horse. He has a sloping shoulder, which is good. He has a deep barrel. He has a very strong back and lines, which is very good. His croup is sloping, just one sloping. It's not ridiculous. So he has a strong forearm. He has a short cannon bone. He has substance. And breed standard, he's positive. So when you come down to movement, then his length to stride is only average. So he's toed out and walk, and his trot stride is short. So he's average down along there. But in he doesn't have impulsion or balance. He's a little weak there, but he's not severely weak. So if you had a mare that's positive or had a movement score like the last horse, or a linear profile like the last horse on movement, you'd get the best of both worlds. You get good conformation and good movement. But if your breeding goal here is to produce a performance Irish draft that can jump in those performance classes to a certain level, he wouldn't be the horse to use. But if your goal is to preserve the breed standard and breed a nice true to type saleable traditional Irish draft, this is a very good type of horse to use based on that profile. You'll see down further on his athleticism, it's not too bad, but he's weak on technique. He's very stretched in front. So he's not bending up his front legs when he's jumping. So there's a high probability that he's going to knock poles when he's doing that. So if you were trying to get, you'd be looking at having a mare that has a bit of technique. If you were trying to get the best of both worlds, if you were trying to breed an all-rounder that had good conformation and had a bit of a jump as well. So the other thing there is he's careful and he has a great attitude. Now the attitude on athleticism also tells you a good bit about a horse's temperament, their willingness to do the job, without being overly encouraged by the arena party to jump the fences. So it's just something to note when you're looking at a profile. So this next profile then is from a Class 2 stallion. So before I get into the detail of the profile itself, just on Class 2, so when your mare or stallion gets Class 2, first of all, you're veterinary sound and you can breed from them, and the progeny can be upgraded to Class 1. And also, if you cross them with a Class 1 or if you cross them with another Class 2, your progeny are still eligible to go forward for inspection for Class 1. So also it's one day, it's a moment in time. They're presented for inspection at a certain age, and as judges we have to judge what's in front of us. We're saying on that day that this horse or this stallion or this mare doesn't meet the standard for Class 1 in the stud book. We're not saying they're there for life or they can't improve. And from a breeding point of view, what we're saying with a Class 2 is you have to be extra careful and extra vigilant breeding from them. We're not saying don't breed from them, because people will get maybe it's the only mare they have. It's a Class 2 and might be the last of a line of mares that's a Class 2. Some people say, sure, sell her and replace her, but if you're trying to replace a Class 2 with a Class 1, it's going to cost you a lot of money. So for a lot of people, we have to make do with what we have, but you can improve a Class 2. If you look at the HSI magazines that come out every quarter or twice a year, with the lists of mares that have been inspected, there's always class 2 progeny getting class 1. So it is working to that extent. It can be done. So this particular horse now that I'm going to talk about is a horse that failed in every aspect of the inspection criteria. So they're inspected for conformation, type, movement, and athleticism. So, and you can start to see why here. First of all, there's a lot of bars jutting in and out here for this particular horse. So the horses that tend to be passing will be closer to the center on most things. So the first thing to say about him is he's obviously rectangular, so he's a lengthy horse. His shoulder is straight. He has a quality head. His shoulder is tending towards straight. He has an obviously shallow barrel. He has a very sloping croup. He has a short croup. So he has a weak forearm, a long cannon bone, and he's light of bone, light of substance. He's slightly sickle-hocked. That's okay. And his hindquarters and gaskins are weak. And then he's not towards breed standard. So what the panel would have been seeing would be a light-boned, light-bodied horse that didn't look to them like a typical Irish draft model. And then you go to movement, and he has no positive in movement. He's towards negative in every aspect of his movement. So he's weak in that area. And then his jumping effort is a little better, but again, he's weak on technique. And he's tight behind, and he's stiff, but he has a lot of attitude. His jumping score was the closest he came to meeting the requirement for any of the 4 elements of the inspection. So that's a class 2 horse that failed significantly. That was a very light type of horse. And so that's a class 2. That linear profile of that class 2 horse is a horse that I wouldn't recommend breeding to. So now we're looking at a different class 2 horse that passed some elements of the inspection. So this is a horse that I would consider breeding to if provided you had the right mare. So his conformation is quite good in general. His movement is a little weak. His jump is decent. So the things that stick out here is he has a fine head, so he has a quality head. He has a heavy head-neck connection. He has heavy muscling in the neck. So he has a sloping shoulder. He has a deep barrel, strong lines. His croup is normal. So substance of legs is going out as very light. And his forearm is a little weak. So he's going 1 negative on breed standard. So what he was here is a light boned horse that was produced to show standard, and Irish show standard is 90% of the time is over fat. So you'll see there he's a 3-year-old horse at that, and he's heavy muscling as his neck, so he has a crested neck, and he's overdone. And that overdoing on light limbs then leads to what you're seeing on movement. He's weak on movement, on linked to stride, because he's carrying too much weight for his body. So he's a quality horse, and if he wasn't overdone, he'd have looked better at the inspection. And he passed his jumping, he passed on conformation. He didn't pass on type because his limbs didn't match his body, and his movement is weak. But if you had a mare that's a good mover, his conformation is okay, there's nothing really damning in his conformation, it would be safe to use this class 2 horse. So there's a vast difference. So there's a vast difference between the bottom end of class 2 that's failing on all elements and a horse that's just missing out on being a class 1, mainly due to his movement here and the fact that he's light of bone. So you'd want a mare with substance, fair enough, but he had quality to bring to it. So if you're in a region like Cork and Kerry here, where we have very few class 1 stallions standing, and depending on the bloodlines you have, you may have to consider using a class 2 stallion. So if there's nothing wrong with doing it, provided he's a class 2 stallion that has some positives. Now, if you're new to breeding, if you're starting out, you're better off going to a class 1 stallion. But if you're experienced and you can understand the linear profile for the horse and understand your mare's conformation, you can breed to a class 2 if you choose to do so. Some people will wish to breed to a class 2 to preserve a bloodline, and there's nothing wrong with that either. Okay, so now we're moving on to a branch member's mare. This is Marie Smitty's mare. So she kindly allowed us to use this mare as an example of a mare that has been inspected and how she used the linear profile of the mare to match it to a suitable stallion. So this mare is a competition mare that has done a lot in open competition, and she wouldn't have been covered only for COVID. And so Marie couldn't compete with her last year because of the restrictions, and she decided to cover her. So we can move on to her linear profile. So the first thing you see on her linear profile is she's obviously rectangle. So the mare is a little long. So the rest of it there, and her head is, her neck is a little short, but again, we're in the middle there. We're only out to F, so these are little things. So the other thing standing out from conformation point of view is her top line is a little weak. So her back is a little long and it's a little weak, and her lines are a little weak. And her cannon bone length is a little long, but it's a pretty good linear profile conformation wise. And on movement, again, the in-hand walk is a little short, but I take no notice of it. Nearly every linear profile you look at will have one short for a walk, because it's a horse being led and not being free walking. So it gets better as it goes down. You see trot impulsion, so it's powerful carrying trot, and so her movement is good in general. And then her athleticism here on this linear profile is exceptional. So she has quick reflexes. She has very bent forelegs, so she tucks up nicely jumping. She has a great shape over a fence. She's open. She has scope. She's supple. She's very careful, and she has a great attitude. And now people would look at it and say, yeah, but the mare has been competing, and sure, she's jumping working hunter courses, and of course she's going to jump well, and that doesn't always work. Often when mares that have jumped under saddle or put into a loose jumping environment, it doesn't often go according to plan. So so we're looking out now at her inspection scores. So she got, so the pass mark is 70 for confirmation, and she gets that. For type is 65, she gets that. Her movement is steady all the way down, she gets 70. But where she excels here is on her athleticism, on her jump. So she gets 80 for reflexes and 80 for technique, 75 for scope, and her average is 78.3. Now, to get a bronze merit, you have to get 70. So she exceeds that by a considerable margin. So I've been inspecting mares for a good few years, and I've never seen a score this good for a mare. The top score for athleticism in Ireland for a stallion is 80. So this for her athleticism, this score puts her in the top 2% of inspected Irish draft mares on that trait. So it's an excellent achievement to get that kind of a score in athleticism, and well done to Marie. So then we look at the profile of the stallion she has selected. So this is excellent matching of one linear profile to another. So we saw on the mare's profile that she was obviously rectangle, and she's gone for a horse here that's neither rectangle or square. So he's in the middle, which means he's a short-backed horse with a good top line. So he's got a deep barrel, so she was in the middle for that. He has a strong line of back. He has strong lines. The two areas where her mare was weak. So the three areas where her mare was weak in confirmation, the three main areas, being around the top line, she's gone for a horse that's positive there. As well as that, her mare would have been a little light in substance, and this horse has a strong forearm and heavy for substance of legs, so he's got good bone, and he's very much towards breed standard, so he's a real true to type horse. Again, her mare was one short for walk. This horse is one long for walk. Her mare, I think, was in the middle for throttling to stride, and the horse has a long stride, and he's positive down along for movement. He's steady mover. And what's interesting here as well is she hasn't gone for a horse with no athleticism, even though her mare has great athleticism. She's kept that by using a horse like this, because this horse has an obviously good technique. He's bent in front as well. He makes a good shape over a fence. He's not as athletic as the mare, but he'll certainly maintain the athleticism she has based on that profile. So we're very grateful to Marie for allowing us to use her mare as an example, because it's excellent use of a linear profile. So now I'm going to show you some pictures of some photographs of mares and the type of stallions I would match with them based on confirmation. These are mares I've profiled. These are mares from all the mares are UK mares taken. These are photographs that were taken at the breed show in the UK in Lincolnshire in 2015. So Mary here is what I'd call it a true to type Irish draft mare. There's a lot to like about this mare. So when I'm looking at any horse, I'm looking at the positives first, and then I'm looking at the weak points. So her positives here is she has great depth of body. She stands over plenty ground, so like she'd be about 2 rectangle on a linear profile. She has 4 great limbs under her. She has quality limbs, and she has flat bone. She has a good knee. She has a sloping pastern. She has a good forearm. She has great length and depth in her hindquarters. She's a little weak of her back, but she's a mature mare that's had a number of foals, so you take no great notice of that. So the area where I'd see weaknesses is her shoulder is a little straight and her neck is a little short and her head is a little plain. So that's the area where I'd see her weak, but she's a hell of a nice Irish draft mare, in my opinion. So then I'd move on to the type of horse. This is a horse that's standing in the UK. So he is a bigger horse than he looks in that picture. Now he's, I'd say, 16.5 at least. And he's a younger horse than he is now in that picture. But I suppose why I'm selecting him in this case is just what I talked about. I think he has a really quality head and a light neck and a light head-neck connection. And even though his shoulder isn't massively sloping, he has a well-defined weather, and it's not a heavy shoulder. He needs all the bone he has, but it's everything. It's real quality bone, lovely quality limbs again, short cannon bone. He's a little sickle-hocked, but the mare is not. So he also has nice depth as well. For a stallion, he has right nice heart room. So there's his front end conformation is why I've selected him to match this mare. So we can move on to mare B. So this is a different type of mare, a much bigger mare. So one of the thing to take into account here is the last mare we looked at was a mature brood mare rearing a foal that has obviously had a number of foals. This is a mare who's under saddle normally, who's not under saddle in this photograph. So even though she doesn't look as deep as the other mare, she still has good depth of body behind her shoulder there. So she has good heart room. What's obvious here is she's on the leg a good bit. She's a very big mare, and she has a heavy type of a shoulder and shorter front. She has a nice enough Irish draft head and a great ear on her, and she's a little weak of her hindquarters again and gaskin, and a little sickle-hocked as well. So the stallion then. So this is a stallion that was passed in Ireland a few years ago, and he stands in the UK now. So what I like about this horse for that type of mare is he's very well balanced horse. So he's in 3 even thirds, like from his head to his shoulder, his back and his hind end are almost 3 equal thirds. He has a sloping shoulder. He has a nice front on him. He's a good Irish draft head. He has a short cannon bone, even though that horse mightn't look to have a lot of bone. He measured 24 centimeters on the day of his inspection, so he has plenty of bone for his age at that time. He's not over big. He has low set hocks and short cannon, so he brings the mare down a bit from height-wise. He's particularly strong in his hindquarters and gaskins. Really good gaskins there. He's also a horse that moved well and jumped well on his linear profile as well. So you're trying to select a horse that's going to correct some of her weaknesses and that's not going to breed a foal that's the same height as herself. You want to bring down the height a bit and get correct her conformation. So that's why I've selected that horse. So this mare was a champion on the day. So this is another very nice Irish draft mare with great depth of body, short cannon bones again, good forearm, nicely sloping pastern, superb back end on this mare, lovely hind quarter and an excellent hind leg. Her head could be a little sweeter, but it's still a nice Irish draft head. So her head neck connection would be a little heavy, and she's a little flat on top for weather. That would be the two areas where I'd see a little weakness there. The other thing I've done here as well is I've shown you a few photographs. So the photograph head on here so tells you that this mare is slightly toed in. Now it doesn't affect her in any which way moving or anything else, but from using a linear profile point of view, it's something you should be aware of. And if you have a mare that's toed in or toed out, don't breed into a stallion that's the opposite. Like, don't breed to a stallion that's toed out thinking one will balance the other. You'll only get the worst of both worlds. So when you're selecting a stallion, if your mare is toed in or toed out, you select a stallion that's neither toed in or toed out. So he's letter E down the middle for stance of forelegs. And the next picture I'm going to show you is the same mare in a total different light. So I'm trying to emphasize here, not just don't go by one photograph of an animal and cut them or assess them based on that. So when you'd look at the photograph of the mare, you'd say a true to type mare, but not the most athletic. And then you see her moving and it's a totally different story. You'd say this would be a lovely mare under saddle. What I like about this shot is it shows what we're talking about when we're referring to carrying and trot. So she's getting her hind leg in underneath her and it's landing where the front leg is taking off from. She also has showing a great length of stride here and moving from her shoulder and moving from behind, and you're not getting any knee action. Her front leg is going straight out. She looks at a lighter athletic mare and movement, and this is part of the reason why she got all the sashes she got, because you have to be able to do both to win championships. So it just goes to show, I think it's a very good moving shot. And now we'll move on to the stallion that I'm recommending for her. So the little weak points I saw were in the front end of her. So this horse has a very good weather. He has a high weather and a well-defined weather. And he has a lovely front. Quality Irish draft head. He's a little light on his middle, but she has fantastic depth. And he's a little light on a hind quarter, but she has great depth and power there. And like, first thing when you look at this horse is he looks like a horse that could do a job. Another interesting point about this horse is he was presented twice. He was presented as a 3-year-old and he got class 2. I was on the panel that gave him class 2 as a 3-year-old. He was a very raw, empty shell of a horse, not fully mature at all. And he came back 3 years later, and he was shown under saddle as well for a bronze merit. He jumped a course of fences. Not only did he get class 1, but he got his bronze merit. Another thing about the horses that come back that go into class 2 as 3-year-olds often, that are underdeveloped, is every one of them will measure more bone when they come back. That horse had nearly a centimetre more bone when he came back 3 years after his first inspection. So in fairness to the owners, they put the work in, they spent money on him, they got him broken, they got him ridden, they allowed him develop, they didn't rush back the year after expecting something to change. And he's a prime example of a horse of a horse that went out too soon, that when given a chance to develop, as often can happen with class 2 horses that get upgraded later on, it can be done. I think he's quite a nice horse that can suit the type of mare that I've just shown, a more traditional deep-bodied mare with good hind end. But he has a lovely front to him, and that's why I've selected him for that mare. So that's the end of my ramble, and we can move on to some questions if you're all still awake.
Of course, they're all still awake, Liam. Thank you very much for that. So just 1 second here. There were some questions pre-submitted, so I'm going to go to those ones first, and then we'll go to the floor for any more questions. Okay, so I'll just. So one of the questions here was in relation to using embryo transfer with a recipient mare. So is it possible to breed from a class 1 Irish draft stallion and mare by embryo transfer to a host mare with the intention of breeding a foal that could subsequently be put forward for inspection?
The answer is yes. It's expensive, but yes, in embryos, the genetics of the embryo are based on the parents of the embryo, not on the recipient. One thing to note is if you're doing an embryo transfer at the moment, and if your mare has performed, there is financial support available from HSI for embryo transfer at the moment. So it might be worth looking into depending on what the mare has done. Okay.
Another question we got in was, why are we seeing a proportional lengthening of the cannon bone in the Irish draft?
Well, the breed's getting bigger, so I mean that's the obvious statement. But we've only been assessing cannon bone length through linear profiling for 10 years. Now I know that Catherine Brady and HSI has done a study of the different traits, and cannon bone length is one of them. Of all the Irish drafts that have been inspected since 2010. So she has some analysis on cannon bone length and where it's going and where it's coming from. So I have an email address for her someplace that I can pass on to you, Catherine, and you can pass on to the person that sent in that question. It is a concerning thing in the draft breed. but it's something that people really need to be looking at on linear profiles. If you have a linear profile for your mare, and you're looking at linear profiles of stallions that you're going to use, you know, if they're down, if your mare is down as long, it's even one long. And by one long now, I mean going out to D. You need to be looking at a horse that's either at E or F. You know, like a short cannon bone, preferably. Now, I would say one thing about the last two stallion inspections, the three stallions with them that measured the most bone on the day got class 1. So that's a positive thing. Generally speaking, horses that are going measuring 24 and 25 centimeters of bone will have a shorter cannon bone length. So they would be horses that be probably bred since 2010. So anecdotally, maybe there is a trend for it to start coming down, but it's something we're very aware of as inspectors, and it's a definite trend within the breed. But I would say like that I'd have gone to every mare championship that was held in Mill Street from 77 up to 92, and the mares that were winning in the late 70s, early 80s, like Pink Carnation, Bond Long Beauty, those mares were a different type of mare to Brian Lass and the Thatcherite, and the mares that were winning it towards the end of that championship. So the trend to mares getting bigger and the breed getting bigger is going on for decades, not just the last 10 years. So it's something that it's a hard, for something that's going on for 30 or 40 years, trending upwards. The other thing that affects it as well is the breed's getting bigger because they're being fed better and overfed as young horses a lot in cases as well. And, you know, it is an issue. It's a definite issue, and we're aware of it as inspectors. So, but definitely Catherine Brady is worth contacting because she has done some analysis of what we know based on the results of on the linear profiles of everything that's been inspected.
Okay.
And just to add to that, like there's only a fraction of what has been registered has been inspected. So you really only have a fraction of, or you know, part of the picture of the entire breed as well. And it's really only the mares and the stallions have been inspected. So, you know, there's a lot of geldings around the country with lovely short chin bones, and they're not even on the radar, you know. So you're only looking at a fraction of what is being bred when you're looking at the results of the inspection.
Okay. Thanks. The next question we had there was, what does the panel think is the conformation aspect that is most in need of remedial work by selective selection of a stallion? I suppose that's probably a difficult one to answer in general, but.
Well, I suppose the most common thing leveled at us as inspectors is a lack of consistency. And in one sense, you can't just select one model of an Irish draft. You have to have some variation in the type of stallions you put forward. Like I've shown you, different positives to suit different breeding goals. So like one of the things, you're there to preserve and improve the breed. So that's always the balancing act, is you want to preserve the characteristics of the breed, like the short cannon bone we just talked about, and depth of body and substance. But in order for a breed to prosper and to survive, it has to have a purpose, and people will buy Irish Draughts to ride them at some level. So you have to be conscious of that. That's why movement and athleticism come into it. So, like, I mean, it would be remiss of us, like, if we weren't looking at athleticism when there's competitions out there like the performance class in Dublin for Irish Draughts, if we weren't looking at that element in stallion selection. So it's a constant balancing act between preserving the traditional values and making the breed like a commercially viable breed to breed, and for a farmer breeder to keep them, to help make part of his living out of by breeding them. So in terms of when the original task force was, the first task force was came into being in 2009, 2010, that was chaired by Michael Dignan at the time. The two things they identified as being the most important at that time were front leg conformation and movement. And that's why, that's why conformation and movement are 270s to get the pass mark, and athleticism as at 65. So they saw athleticism as less important than movement. And at that time, like whatever about anything else, like I would say the movement within the breed has been improving over the last 10-15 years. So everyone will have their own personal preferences, like, but everything on that sheet is important. But from a functional conformation point of view, front legs are extremely important because of the work they have to do and the weight that comes on them, no matter what you're doing with a horse. So the breed standard is the breed standard. So like every element of it should have equal importance. So I don't know if that answers it or not, but
just to follow on again, the functional conformation is the most important part. If you're like in the last 10 years, the breed has changed so much. Like there's more emphasis put on the ridden aspect now, and people are using Irish Draughts for performance showing and all of that. So you have to look at the functional aspects of the conformation, from the head neck connection right back to the tail. Everything needs to work in sequence, and it's up to the people like who are buying the horses. They're only going to buy the one that's going to suit what they want. So it's up to the breeder then to breed what the market wants. So again, it's the whole package really has to improve in ways like.
Yeah, and I suppose what I would take away from the earlier presentation is that's going to be different for every mare. When the conformation aspect that you need to improve is going to vary according to the conformation of the mare that you're looking at. You need to look at their profile and see where they need improvement as well, rather than the breed as a whole. Maybe.
Like if people do need help with understanding the linear profiles and all of that, Jesus, just give us an email or drop a line or whatever, phone call. We're all here to help each other. There's no point in one fella going one way and the other fella going the other. We'll all help each other, and it will make it.
Yeah. So another question that came in, which I think probably may have been addressed already in the presentation, but what is the difference between a Class 1 stallion and a Class 2 stallion? What if the horse has a lot of great qualities but had a bad inspection day?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, you go ahead, sure.
Like you look at the marks that they get in the inspection, and that's the difference. If if they have a bad day, well then that may happen, but to be fair, it doesn't happen that often, I don't think, you know. It could be because they're underdeveloped the first time, like Liam showed in one of his slides, and came back 3 years later. It was just a totally different horse. I think it happened again this year from a horse that was inspected in 2015 or 16. He came back this year and got class 1. So
Mm-hmm.
you know, that happens. It's one of those things.
Yeah. The next question is one that I know has come up at meetings and we've wondered about ourselves. Why are class 2 stallions or equivalent listed in the sport horse section of the stud book, but not in the ID section? So like the examples that you used there, Liam, were all from 2015. I think that was the only year that the class 2 profiles were published in the stud book.
Yeah, so the reason they were published in 2015 is because there was a task force in 2014. So I know from an inspector's point of view, as part of that task force, we met as a group of inspectors first in Kildare, the soon-to-be former home of HSI. And we unanimously agreed at that meeting that from an inspector's point of view, we had no problem whatsoever with the results of the class 2 stallions, which is basically what we're talking about being published, because the mare's linear profiles aren't published anywhere anyway. So we're talking about stallions. So I know we had another day then with members of the task force present as well as part of that review of the stud book. So the following year they were published, and they haven't been published since. I don't know why. So the linear profiles I showed you there from 2015, because they're the only class 2 ones available to us. But what I would say to anyone breeding to a class 2 is that the owner of a class 2 stallion, if he's advertising him at stud publicly, has a linear profile sheet for him if he's a class 2, that you're entitled to ask for a look at if you want to. Mm-hmm. But in terms of them being approved in the stud book in the sport horse section and not the Irish draft section, there's 2 different sets of criteria for approval in the 2 stud books. So any Irish draft stallion that's either class 1 or class 2 that meets the merit requirements. So there's three merits, bronze, silver, and gold, awarded to stallions based on their own performance or their progeny's performance. And regardless of, so the horse had been inspected for the draft stud book, and the Irish draft inspectors would deem him not suitable based on confirmation to the Irish draft breed standard, but the horse could jump an open competition if he gets a silver merit, which is achieves 4 double clears at 120 level. That's in his own performance. He is automatically approved in the Irish Sport Horse Stud Book. He doesn't do a separate inspection to be on the Sport Horse Stud Book. It's based on either his own open competition performance or his progeny's. There's criteria set down and laid out there in the front of the stallion registers that are published every 2 years and on the HSI website. So that's how come they end up approved as sport horses and not class 1 Irish drafts. They don't. The sport horse stud book is about performance, and they meet the performance requirements for that stud book, but they don't meet the inspection requirements. So the Irish Draft Stud Book is about conformation, type, and conformance to breed standard first and performance second. And the Sporter Stud Book, by its nature, is performance. And they'll allow weaknesses in conformation. Now, if you look at some of the Class 2 horses, Class 2 drafts that are approved in that stud book, in the Sporter stud book, and look at their linear profiles underneath them, you'll understand why they didn't meet the inspection requirements for the draft stud book.
Okay.
Okay.
I think that clears that up. The next question I think was fairly well addressed during the presentation, but just to acknowledge the question, what does a mare owner need to consider if they want to breed to a Class 2 stallion or from a Class 2 mare?
Yeah, I think we've answered that already.
Yeah. The next one is, what is the current status of the amnesty?
Now, this is to the best of my knowledge. The amnesty that's there was agreed for 5 years, from 2017 to 2021, inclusive. So the current amnesty that's there for the progeny of uninspected or Class 4 animals to come forward for inspection ceases at the end of this year. So what happens after that, I don't know, but this agreement was a 5-year amnesty. Like all amnesties that are introduced for stuff, they're introduced for a period of time. So this one that's here for the 5 years finishes at the end of 2021. Whether if there's a new amnesty introduced after that, then it's a new amnesty. It's not this one. The current amnesty is a 5-year thing from 2017 to 21. Okay.
Okay. Another question that's just come in on the chat. So there's a few of them here. What is the ideal age to put a mare forward for inspection, in your opinion?
Once she's looking mature enough, really. Some are very mature at 3 and more are not. So once they're mature enough, really, is what I would say.
Yeah, I'd agree with Ger there, 100%. There's a huge difference, like when you do the spring inspections and the autumn ones. And the autumn ones, you get people rushing out with 2-year-old fillies, and in the spring ones, you tend to see more mature mares, and in different parts of the country as well. Like if the in-hand showing areas where in-hand showing is huge, like they can't get them Class 1 fast enough, but in other areas they allow them time. As an inspector, we'd prefer not to see them until they're 3 years or above, to give them the best chance of achieving Class 1. I think you'll always have the exception, the overfed show filly at a 2-year-old that looks like a 4-year-old mare, but there's only 2 or 3 of them in the country every year.
Yeah. And
because there's 2 or 3 of them in the country and their owners want to get them classified as Class 1 as quick as possible, then there's everyone else is following that and coming out with a filly that's not developed at all. Like, I mean, it's and what happens is they get put into Class 2, and sometimes they just don't come out anymore because of that. So that's my view on it.
The other thing about that is people are bringing the animals out without having any preparation done, and that's where they're looking at animals. They're frightened of their life coming into a new arena. They're looking around. They haven't seen colored poles before. They haven't seen white cheating before this. And preparation is number one. And like I saw this year at a few of the mare inspections, people that were pairing mares for the last 3 or 4 months, and they duly got class 1 because the mare came in, she wasn't startled, she wasn't frightened of anything, she was happy enough to be in a new environment. And that's the beauty of the Irish draft. They'll adapt to anything, but education is a huge part of it as well. And the people need to be educated, and likewise the horses need to be educated. But
yeah,
preparation is the most important.
And it's in your own best interest as an owner and a breeder, and the best interest of your horse to have them, you know, well prepared going into any environment. It's the same if you're going to a show or something like that, you know. They need to be used to at least being around other horses and going in a box and all the rest of it.
And the farrier is a big thing as well. Like people get their hoofs trimmed 2 days before the inspection, or the night before, or the morning of, and they come in then and they're slightly lame, or they're a bit
tender and a bit afraid of themselves. Yeah. Another question that's coming in here: apart from looking at the linear profiles, what resources would you recommend to a first-time Irish draft breeder to breed a nice leisure horses like the chestnut mare that Liam showed earlier?
Sorry, what? I missed some of that.
So apart from linear profiles, what other resources would you recommend to a first-time breeder and they want to breed a nice leisure horse with a bit of athleticism and performance, a bit like Marie's mare that we showed earlier?
But the linear profile is where you start, really. You have to look at what you have yourself, and you have to be honest with yourself when you're looking at your own mare. I know, like, we all love our own mares, and we all look into their eyes and all the rest of it, but you know, it's when you look at the rest of them is where you're going to see the bits that need to be improved. And again, it's down to your breed goal. If you want to breed a nice riding horse, well, you're going to have a little bit of athleticism, you're going to have a nice shoulder, good withers, head neck connection has to be, the length of neck has to be reasonably okay. You know, I know Liam was saying that you don't need them too long, but you need them slightly longer for a ridden horse. They just need to have a little bit more scope in their body. And they're the things. You need to look at the functional characteristics first, and then look at your profile and where you're going to go from there. Like we started off with Irish draft mares, and I showed a few pictures of what we have there from going down another road, but you can do it, you know.
The other thing I'd say about that is back breeding. So if you're looking at a particular stallion and you like the look of him, or you want to produce something that's if he's a new stallion and he hasn't bred many foals, you can't go on his progeny, but you can look at his sire's progeny and his dam's progeny. Like Cotter is a great resource if you can use it. You know, if you can go in and see when you go into a stallion and Cotter and you click in his name, be a cross down dancer, whatever you click in on, you'd see his progeny. And the progeny is listed in order of performance. So the first offspring you're going to see will it'll have a box on the right hand side, which will show SJI points or eventing points or UK eventing points or EFI points. So it'll show the horse's performance. It'll show whether that stallion has bred a 4-star eventer or a horse that has competed at 4-star level or a grade A show jumper. And you know, all of the horses that have registered, everything that's registered with SJI is going to have that little green box with a horse's head in it. And you click into that and you'll see how many points they have, what level they got to. Like I find that a great resource. So
yeah,
you'll be probably going into the first of all, you're able to go into, when you go into the horse you're looking at, so you pick out a horse on the stallion register or on the website, and you go into the name of that horse, and then you can click in on the tab on the top of it to his pedigree, and that's going to have the dam and the sire, and you can click into the dam or the sire and look at their progeny, and see has siblings jumped. So even if you're looking at something, if you want something that's going to be a leisure horse that can do something like Marie's mare, that can perform and do jump to like even working hunter level, you'd be looking to see that either the sire or the dam of the stallion you're using has bred something that's jumped at some kind of a level. So that's a resource that's there. I think it's a fantastic thing, is you can do hypothetical mating on it to see whether you're inbreeding or not as well, or if you click into it and your mare has genetic diversity for the breed as well will be on there. Just one other thing, Marie's mare is mentioned there. Marie's mare is a Cork mare, and a lot of people would go telling you that rare bloodlines can't perform. So that's a nonsense. There's an inherent jumping ability and athleticism in the Irish draft breed as a whole. Just because particular lines were underused for various reasons over the years doesn't mean that you can't get a performance animal from them. So it's a sweeping generalization that's often made about rare bloodlines, and it's totally wrong.
Okay.
And just again, like a lot of the competitions that the Irish drafts would be competing in wouldn't be recorded onto Coppelor or recorded into the, going back the years. So like athleticism would be a very important trait to be looking out for as well in that, along with functional conformation.
Yeah, but it is a good way to look at the back breeding, and
if it's there. But like if you take the chestnut mare that I showed earlier, like we know her breeding back 5 or 6 generations, but the Irish Horse Board in their wisdom and decided to put breeding not recorded behind her,
a few of those,
which is stupidity, and
yeah.
Look, her breeder lives her granddam's breeder lives a few miles out the road from us, and he has the whole lot back along. He has the pedigrees and all of that, and it's down as not recorded on the Coppelor, which is
just for the benefit of the person that asked the question, because I know they said they're a new breeder. We all call it Coppelor out of pure habit, and the name changed. It's now IHR Online. So if you're Googling it, it's IHR Online. And it's free to use. You just need to set up a username and password the first time you use it, but it's free to use, and it's a great resource. Another question there, which I think was actually already answered. That was, are the Class 2 linear profiles published anywhere for access to breeders? And
1 year only.
1 year only, but they must be somewhere. So I think if we all keep pointing out to Horse Board Ireland that they need to provide that information to breeders, maybe it will be made available.
And to be fair, a lot of the Irish Horse Board members are Irish draft people, so they're the ones going to the meetings, and it's up to them to maybe bring that to the meeting, and I'm sure like they are doing their best to know that, and like they will bring that back to the fore again, I can imagine.
Yeah. Another question there. What age would you recommend inspecting a mare for athleticism?
Same age, three or above. We don't inspect mares for like
the 2-year-olds don't do the jumping.
2-year-olds don't jump, like, so that's another reason not to bring out 2-year-olds. You're missing out on that. If you're going to the bother of bringing a mare to inspection, you want to learn as much as you possibly can about her attributes. Like, so the fact that you bring them out as a 2-year-old and you can't do the athleticism element of an inspection. So, even though you might have no interest in jumping or that side of it, wouldn't it be nice to know if she had a jump or not? You know, so definitely same age, like any 3-year-old that's reasonably looked after will be mature enough to do it. Obviously, to get a score like Marie got, a mare that has competed.
That's at least already broken. And
yeah, that's broken and ridden and jumped and all that, like, has an advantage, you know. So I mean, if you know, Marie's mare is performance tested like before she comes to an inspection, but like I said, there's been mares that have jumped at 120 level, and they under saddle, and they go in and make a Hames of jumping loose when they haven't jumped loose for years, you know. So
yeah. Another question.
Just and that they either have athleticism or they don't have it. They don't really develop it as they come along. So you'll see it in them from the word go, really. You know, from when they're foal, you see a nice athletic foal going around, and they just develop on that, really.
Another one here. Having been inspectors using the linear system, scoring system for a number of years, is there anything you would do to improve or change the process?
Educate the breeders with that seems to be where the biggest problem is the breeders haven't been educated to understand it, really. Like I see people there, they'd hand you the book of the mare, and the thing is folded into the back of it in a ball, and it was never even read. They either got class 1 or they got class 2, and they got class 2, they never again looked at it, you know. And it was everyone else. It was everyone else was wrong. But look, it's there. There's an awful lot of information on it, and that's the only thing I would do is I would, you know, try and meet the breeder afterwards or something, and go through the linear profile. That would be the one thing I would do if I could. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so like the Connemara's have been doing linear profiling there for the last 2 years or so. They're new to it as well, so they have a person appointed there, an inspector or a judge as well, to sit at a desk basically. Well, this is pre-COVID times now, and discuss the. So it's different with the Connemara's. You get your linear profile on the day. It's handed back to you, the sheet that's actually, it's photocopied and handed to you.
Okay. So
you get your sheet on the day, then you go into this person who will go through the sheet with you and tell you, explain the sheet to you, or discuss the scores with you and why this happened and this didn't happen. So that's the way they're doing it. But it's possible to do that because they hand you the full result on the day, your full linear profile on the day. So we don't do that. We send it off, and the HSI send it off in the post like 2 weeks after.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Another interesting question here that I'd almost forgotten about this. Did the pedigree points go away? I thought there were points given for certain bloodlines, outcrosses, etc.
Yes, they did go away. They went away as part of the last review, the last task force in 2014. So I'd say they're gone since, they're gone since 2015 inspections from there on. So there was pedigree bonus points for rare bloodlines, and there was pedigree bonus points for performance bloodlines, and the maximum was 10 points added on. So they're no longer.
But the reason they were got rid of was they were being used to increase the values of the confirmation score or the movement score or whatever, and it wasn't they weren't being used correctly, really. You know, of course they should be there as a pointer for somebody who's going breeding. I think they should be there, but they shouldn't be used the way they were being used.
Okay. Another question here. Where can one find the linear profiles for inspected Irish draft stallions?
On the Horseport Ireland website, if you go into breeding, and you go down to the Irish draft, and then you go to the stallion inspections, I think, and
Selections.
sorry, stallion selection. Sorry, yeah, and it's in there. You get the results of the last maybe 10 years.
Yeah, they're also printed in the stallion register. It comes
Yeah,
out
but it's
every second year, I think, now.
Yeah, every 2 years. So there's a 2021 is the latest edition that's out. So, but you get the linear profile on the stallion register, but you get more information on if you go into the website and you click in. So you go into the results and there'll be a picture of the horse, but there's a PDF file there then that you click into, and that gives you the scores, the scores the horse got. It gives you the inspector's comments, the panel's comments, and the linear profile. So you get more information. So you get a description of the horse as well as you get a written description of the horse as well as the linear profile, and you get the horse's results.
Okay. Another question here, and I'm not sure that there's a single straight answer to it, but can an upgrade mare, which I presume is the equivalent of the old appendix mare, compete as an Irish draft?
No. It depends on the show or
Yeah,
the
exactly.
event. If it's allowed under the rules, they can, but you know, they are the forgotten souls, like, really, within the breed. And the thing about it is, a grade up mare's progeny, be they male or female, are entitled to go forward for class 1 inspection, male and female.
Okay.
So that is something that people don't know, because in the old appendix mares, it was only fillies were eligible
Yes.
for class 1, but the EU said no, you can't discriminate on gender. So the grade up now a stallion of a grade up mare can go forward. So it's something that the people should be aware of. They should be classes for them, or they should be recognized as being eligible for some certain competitions anyway. Because they are just forgotten about. The fact that you can't so the whole idea of the grade up is to broaden genetic diversity. So you have to have one parent and 3 grandparents to be a grade up.
Yeah,
Irish
and
draft.
the idea with that grade up register was that in 2 generations, then you'd have a pure again, wasn't it?
Yeah, and so it is there, but what happens then is so someone brings their mare out for grade up. Now, as part of the 2014 task force as well, every owner of an Irish sport horse mare who was eligible to be a grade up mare were written to and told. So mares came out for grade up in 2015. And kind of haven't seen anything for grade up since.
Yeah, it is something that people are not aware of, and it's not really advertised when the inspections are advertised. The same reason that geldings are never brought out to be profiled.
Yeah, exactly.
They're advertised as mare inspections. So who brings a gelding to a mare inspection? It is probably something that people should be informed about, because it does give an opportunity to bring in that genetic diversity and that little bit of blood every few generations, maybe, as the older breeders would have suggested. Another question, and I think both of you have done sport horse inspections at some point as well. What are the differences in the scoring linear profiling between the sport horses and the Irish drafts?
You're looking for an athletic horse, like the breed goal is totally different if you want to go back to it there, and the So you're looking for a totally different horse. Basically, you're looking for an athlete. And you're breeding an Irish draft as a type and as a breed. You're inspecting as a breed, but you're inspecting. Some of the profiles are the same, but they do look for more length in the body, and they do look for what are the more basic ones, Liam? There's
well, the uphill and downhill for a start.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to think of. Yeah.
That's one of the first things. Like that's different. You know, obviously they don't have, like we have breed type in there. They don't have that. So,
barrel, or
you know, again, it's like the difference between doing the two inspections, like, is, you know, so I know, like Andrew Gardner this year had to go from one to the other, which is very difficult, because when we're doing Irish drafts, we spend a long time on confirmation, and then we start getting faster then. Whereas they go through the basic confirmation very quickly, and then they really get into the jump, like, and the movement and the functional aspect of a horse. Like, I mean, what they're looking for in the sport horse inspections is, you know, now, like, is horses that can jump 160 and can produce horses to jump 160. We're in the Irish drafts, we're happy with a horse that can jump a metre or a metre 10, or a very good one, a metre 20, metre 30 max. And that's what the breed has been capable of doing. So, like, it's chalk and cheese, like what's important for sport horses. It's an absolute athlete versus a breed type that we're judging.
Yeah, so there's a good few comments coming in here as well about, you know, it's vital to have all of the information available on the class 2s. So I think that is something that's come up at meetings recently, and it is something that we're going to lobby the HSI on and see. You know, the profiles are there. They should be able to publish them at least online. I can understand if they don't want to print them in the stallion register due to, you know, sheer number of pages and all the rest of it, but at least they could make them available online, because I think it is a valuable resource.
The stallion owners need to make them available as well. You know?
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
And like, the stallion owners wonder why they're not getting mares. Maybe if they just try to be a little bit proactive and encourage breeders by doing this, you know, it's a no-brainer, really.
Absolutely. I think I've caught up with all of the questions in the chat, and I don't see anybody with a hand up.
There's a question coming in there now from Sally.
Oh. Sally, can you also ask for class 2 mares to be listed and their profile? There's
mares aren't listed anyway.
There's very limited information available on mares.
But that's the breeder's. That's like, the breeder has that, so the breeder needs to work with what he has, and then she has, and then go.
But yeah. But I suppose if you want to get a broader picture and you're looking at the progeny of a particular stallion as well, having those profiles available of the progeny is creating a bigger picture of the breed as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, like, as well as that, like, when we class 2 progeny are eligible for class 1 inspection, so they meet the inspection requirements for class 2, fair enough. Like, but they're part of the breed. They're veterinary sound. So from a stallion point of view, they should be published. And the same with mares, the way they list off the mares in the magazine, the class 1 mares. They should, like, there's another page is going to list off the class 2 mares. So You know,
but you even have it available on the website if they don't want to
yeah,
print it,
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
you
but
can,
now I don't know. I don't know why it stopped after 1 year. What happened? Something had to happen, but it's not coming from inspectors. We don't have any issue whatsoever with class 2 information.
It would probably be helpful to you if your reasoning was published. In some
Well, it's
cases.
not fair. It's not fair to people. You can't
Yeah.
make a comparison between the two. Like, I mean, I done some comparison there tonight, but that's not available to people. It is for that year, but not normally.
Another question here. How would you benchmark a mare if you're not showing them? Any ideas?
Don't benchmark based on showing anyway.
yeah,
That's the first thing.
it's going to be nice. Benchmark on your breed goal really is what you need to benchmark on, and what do you want to breed, and how are you going to achieve that? So that's where you benchmark from.
Like, but the other thing I would say about that is that you know, we've given bronze merit, so you can get a bronze merit for conformation and movement, as well as a bronze merit for athleticism. So if you were to get a bronze merit for conformation and movement, that's you got a score of 80 on conformation and 80 on movement, which is hard to get. So very few get it. But mares have got that who have never seen the inside of a show ring. So there's good mares out there that people never see, that come out and they are what they are. Like, people automatically assume like that the only thing that'll get that kind of a score is a mare that has won in the show ring. That's not the case. So that's one thing I say about it.
It's back to what Ger said at the start, don't breed for rosettes.
Exactly.
Our likes on Facebook.
Yeah. Rosettes won't buy the meat for the dinner, but anyway.
COVID rosettes and likes on Facebook.
I'm not seeing any more.
I thought something came in there while I was. No?
Yeah, it's just a comment thanking you for the presentation. Oh, there's one more. Would it be helpful to have clinics pre-inspection for people to prepare better? And these webinars are great too, and hope they continue.
Yeah, I think, Margaret, you're right. I'm free to go over to you there anytime you want.
Just send him the ticket and he'll be over.
Yeah. Everything helps, and you know, I do think that breeders need to stick together and like ask each other for information. Like, I did go to the States a few years ago, and I get emails on a regular basis from people in the States asking me to clarify this or clarify that, and that must be 7 or 8 years ago since I was there, you know, first. And like, people still send me emails to clarify something, but like, I've given the same opportunity to people over here, and nobody has sent me emails, or maybe not nobody, but not a lot, you know. And maybe they're looking at the showing too much or whatever, or you know. But like, you see when they go out with their foals, then you say, what in the name of God are they breeding, you know? And if they only came to me, I could give them some bit of an insight, you know.
Yeah.
And that's one thing. Sorry, Catherine.
Yeah.
Like, you can give out my email at the end of this if you want to, and if people do have any questions, they can just send that.
And in terms of those types of clinics and training events, it is something we did in the branch in the past. We had a couple of training evenings a few years ago. We haven't done it for a while because we sort of switched our focus to running the annual sale. But it is something maybe we might look into doing, and maybe maybe a topic for a
Try doing
future
it
webinar.
on Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe do it in a webinar or something.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
they do.
Yes.
To
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So North America and GB list the class 2 stallions on their websites, but not the profiles. Would it be possible to get the first linear score sheet used to explain the desirable, undesirable traits? Yeah. Creya, I'll put you in touch with Ger because he has that one. Okay. Any other questions? Then, okay. So I would just, on behalf of the Cork Kerry branch of the IDHBA, I'd like to thank Ger O'Sullivan and Liam Cotter for their time and their detailed presentation and taking all of those questions tonight. Thank you all for attending. We will be having some more webinars over the next few months because thanks to this pandemic, we can't do a whole pile else as a branch, but we're trying to use our time. So you can follow us on Facebook at IDHBA Cork Kerry, and you'll see any upcoming events